Yeah, what's the letter Kenny greeting?
How are you now? Not so bad, and you?
Okay, Chris, you and Chris could be the experts on that
Yeah.
one. All right, here. Let's see. Let's just smile or something. I don't know, man. I hate thumbnails. They're like the worst part of all this are the thumbnails. So everybody, you're warned right here and right now that we're going to have detailed spoilers for Suzume. Suzume, a movie that is probably still in theaters if you live in North America. I'm going to recommend you go check it out before you watch this video, but if you decide to go ahead and jump in and hear us talk about it before you've seen the movie, well, you've been warned. We're going to have deep, dark, and dirty spoilers which lie ahead. So take a minute, run away from the screen if you want to. If not, here we go. So, Matthew, thanks for joining me here to talk about this. And of course, Chris hasn't seen the movie. He's just kind of hanging.
Just hanging out.
He doesn't mind if we spoil it because he is spoiler proof. His mind is so vast that he can't
It's
spoil things for you.
yeah, I can't.
Yeah.
Or it's got too many holes in it. It just falls right through.
Well, Matthew, you told me about this movie. You're the only reason I even knew to go see this movie. Were you looking forward to this movie before it came out, or did you just kind of like stumble upon it?
I've been looking forward to this movie for over a year since I don't know when it came out in Japan, but ever since I'd heard about it. Maybe
And
2 years. 3?
tell us a little bit about the creative team. Did we have some common blood with your name here?
Yes, sir. Makoto Shinkai. Same writer, director, producer, Renaissance man.
Pretty
Did
darn talented, and that's a heck of a resume to build on
su-
your name.
super talented. And that was like his fifth, sixth, seventh movie, something like that.
So you said it's a he? I don't know the pronouns. I
Yes.
don't. Okay, so you said it's a he. Um, are all of his movies really kind of like these strong emotional pulls, or does he kind of mix it up with
Yes.
action, adventure, and fantasy? Is really heavy here. I haven't seen your name though. I know it's much loved. Is there a lot of magic or fantasy element in that one?
No. Well, maybe. It's mysterious happenings, definitely.
So
Unexplained, really.
is the creative team like the biggest reason you were looking forward to this, that common blood from that excellent writer creator extraordinaire, or
Yeah.
or was it the story that pulled you
I didn't know the story till I saw the movie. So, purely
in?
on the
Okay.
merits of the creative team.
Now, I always like to talk about what I'm doing, like the theatrical release reviews. I like to talk about the art and the animation a little bit more than I do when we're just doing television, because I'm seeing it on that gigantic screen. It's taking up every square inch of space on our old retinas there, what have you. What did you think about the art here? And at this point, that's almost sounds like a silly question because
Mhm.
anime theatrical release art has just gotten so phenomenal. If you like that style, there's nothing else even close, in my opinion. And I think this movie definitely is right there with what I've come to expect from excellent animation from
Mhm.
a movie of this profile being released. What do you think?
Yes, it's beautiful. It's it's clear and bright and smooth.
Now, I'll tell you, Chris, this is a part where I think you can probably jump in here and kind of understand where I'm coming from here. But when I'm sitting in the theater watching this with my daughter, and I'm like, just really, I like going to these movies on the big screen just for that visual experience more than the story, because I get it so rarely.
Mhm.
But I'm sitting there wondering, like, why have I suddenly been kind of pulled into this? Why did this all start with Demon Slayer, for example? And something that clicked with me is in Japan, the animation still understands the appeal, and they still value the aesthetic of hand drawn cell animation, even though that's such an expensive way to make a theatrical release. We know that even when it looks hand drawn, it's not,
Yep.
but they still keep that tradition alive in the visual appearance. And I'm going to say that Toy Story and Pixar was such a big hit when it came out in the US that it just influenced Western animation to the point that now DreamWorks and Disney and Pixar and all the big Western releases, with a few exceptions, are almost always like that computer modeling type animation. The kind that
Yeah. Yeah.
I think is beautiful. And like that Mario movie, you can see every string of wool in Mario's cap, and it's amazing. But I'm an old guy, man. I'm not a spring chicken, and I love keeping that tradition of the cell animation from my childhood alive, at least the influence of it alive, even though the technique changes, that artistry stays the same in some ways. Do you think I did a fair job explaining that, Matthew?
Yeah,
And I mean, I use Chris as my captive audience. I knew he agreed with me 100%.
Because I agree 100%. Because yeah, you know what? It's like,
Well, I had that preconceived
yeah,
knowledge. I
I
was
mean,
using you as like a plant.
you're definitely right because, I think it all started with Reboot. Does everybody remember Reboot?
Boy,
Reboot
Tesla Note and Reboot, two of my
Reboot
favorite
sent us
animated
on a
shows.
terrible, terrible, terrible path to what we
You're
have
putting
now.
it all at the foot of Reboot when
It
I'm trying to
is,
put it
and
at
which
Toy
I
Story.
believe was like is actually Canadian, so it's like our fault. So I'm
Oh,
sorry,
it's all
Wolf.
your fault, Chris.
But
Your
yeah, no,
fault.
like I feel like if you're sitting there and like because nowadays most of the animation it's hand drawn. Well, what it is really, they draw one
Keyframes.
figure, then the
Yeah,
next, and then the computer just moves it, right? Like that's how
right.
it works. So it's not the same. Like, I mean, now is it cleaner and more like, crisp and like more detailed? Of course.
Yeah.
But it's not actually like a person doing it. So is it really animation? Why don't we just call it the AI overlord creating a
Hey,
movie, right? So
about a year or so ago, I found a program called like White Box Modeling where I can take video of me and turn that into anime. I made like a 3-second little clip of me in anime one time that I put before an Attack on Titan review or something. I mean, it is getting easier and easier to use computers to do the animation, but I love it that they're still appreciating the aesthetic that made me love cartoons when I was a kid, that hand drawn aesthetic.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, no, a hand drawn will always be better than this computer garbage.
And the music, the original
Mhm.
soundtrack, as well as sometimes when popular music's incorporated and stuff, the music is just like your music has to be great now, right? Like if you're going to have a theatrically released anime film, particularly something original like this, and not a
Mhm.
movie release of a popular television series, it's a non-starter if you don't have great music. I think these days. Do you think that this movie had great music, Matthew?
I thought it had really good music, and I like some
Me
of it
too.
sounded like it might have been from like the '60s in Japan. I'm
Yes.
not sure, but I really loved it. I think I'll pick up the soundtrack to this one.
I don't know if I'll pick up the soundtrack, but I loved listening to it. And like you're talking about the road trip song, I think is the
Yeah.
one. It was like from the
Yeah.
'60s, and it's really cool because it sounds so much like some American Motown from the '60s, except it's not in English. So it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's kind of cool. That whole feeling. So for all I know, it might have come out 15 years ago, and it's just a retro sound. I don't know the song itself, but it's just really cool. And then there's good ambient sounds and good
Yeah.
like
Can I
scores.
interject here into this,
Yeah.
even though I haven't heard it? Obviously, I think
Sure.
when it comes to music, at least in my opinion, like I think the most important thing is like when you brought up ambient sound, I think that's the most important thing. I think it has to have like a higher level of both voice acting and it's not like, old Batman bang pow like that. We can't
Yes.
have that.
Yes.
But I think that honestly the music, I mean, I don't on like very seldom can you even if I watch a movie, any kind of movie, do I ever notice there's even music happening? Like so like I can only think of probably like maybe 5 songs I've heard in a movie. Like I blank out entirely, but I think if for anime specifically, anime fans love the OP and the ED, right? And so
Yes.
I think if you have a really good OP and an ED, that can really like heighten your level of appreciation for it or what you like about it. But I don't think I've ever heard or talked to anybody that likes anime that goes, man, that was a really good show, but that OP was terrible. Like that, I just didn't get into it. And so I can't
That's
watch the
very
show,
true.
right? So I
Yeah.
Right.
feel like more like yes, it absolutely can heighten the show, but if you're not enjoying it, I don't think it's going to make a difference. I think what in those cases what'll make a difference is the voice acting and the sound effects that come with that. I think that's what really like pulls you in. A good OP and a great ED, hey, that heightens the whole thing. But like I said, I don't think anybody's going, you know what? I can't watch that when the ED was so bad. The whole episode was great, but I got to the ending and it was just credits. Like
I couldn't handle it anymore.
yeah.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about some of the characters because we do have some interesting characters here. And I think we should start with the character after whom the film is titled, and that's Suzume. And she is I think, what do they say, 11th grade, 10th grade? She's a high school
Yeah,
age,
first year of high school, I think it
first
is.
year, right? And I don't quite know if the years line up right. So I don't know what grade that
Yeah, I'm
is
not
per
sure.
se. But she is our central character. And help me remember some of these details. I only saw the movie once. Did you get to see it more than once, Matthew?
I only saw it once so far. I'm going to see it again tomorrow.
Well, maybe between the two of us, we can remember some of the details. But
Mhm.
in the beginning, did she just sort of discover that door out there all by itself, or did something kind of catch her attention to go that way? That part I don't remember because the movie doesn't necessarily start here, but this is when her
Yeah,
story gets into full swing.
yeah,
Suzume sort of has like a nice imagination fantasy trope of discovering like this abandoned doorway out in the middle of a field. Of course, there's like the foundation of a house, and it's not as purely magical as the door just being out in the middle of nowhere. So it has that mix of realism but fantasy also. Does she
yeah.
just kind of notice the door? Is that all that there is to it?
S-
Or
But after she begins by meeting the love interest on her way to school, and then she turns around after directing him to the ruins and decides to follow him. And
okay,
then
that
she loses track of
okay,
him. Then she finds the door,
okay, so
which she
that
then
makes sense. I
opens.
couldn't quite remember. Like I was watching the movie, I wasn't as invested in it until she gets to the door, and then suddenly I realized I hadn't quite paid enough attention to how she got to the door. But it does like this cool kind of thing I always used to love as a child to have my imagination of like you open a door and it's a portal to another world.
Yeah,
But they also do this kind of cool thing where she sort of passes through it, like you're only in that portal for just a brief instant. It's like
yeah.
a state you can pass through, but one you can't dwell in, which is a kind of cool concept that personally I haven't ran across before. Had you ever seen something quite like that?
I don't have any clear memories or anything, but I couldn't give you an example. I'm pretty sure I did. I have.
And then if the door is left open, we
Yeah,
get an entity, which is what I'm going to call it. They call it a worm, but if you're just picturing like uh, Tremors or something, this is not a graboid. This is
uh,
like almost like pure purple, black, red, kind of veiny, intertwined power that comes
yeah,
out from underneath Japan, and it will split the world in half if it ever gets out.
yeah,
So they're like these people, and it seems to be a family business of people who can see these worms when the doors are left open, and they go around closing doors. And there's like a grandfather, this dreamy looking guy she runs into is one of these closers. He's the grandson, and that is the world we're in. And the adventure kind of gets stepped up when a keystone is removed that kind of weakens the barrier between the two planes, I guess. Isn't that the right way to
yeah,
describe what happens when you move a keystone?
yeah.
And we'll
When you
find out
the guardian god.
that the keystones really don't last forever and have to be replaced periodically. And this is maybe just a natural routine that has to happen every 100 years or so. Now, speaking of the characters, we talked about that handsome guy with the long hair. Soda is his name. Not to be it's with a T, not with a D like soda pop, but it's Sota. But really, he doesn't spend much time in his handsome, dreamy, long-haired form, does he?
He does not. I heard that Shinkai originally wanted him to be a girl.
I can see that. I can see that. But he becomes a child's chair, which
Yeah,
was kind of the craziest thing, but also to me, a three-legged chair, not even a chair that's fully functional, right?
yeah,
A
right.
three-legged chair is what he becomes. It's a crazy turn of events, but then we see this chair has such a strong emotional backstory to it. It was created by her mother who
Yeah.
disappeared. We kind of find this as like the quest for mom a little bit too.
Hmm.
But that three-legged chair running around town and chasing the cat and being chased by other stuff and going under cars and everything, for some reason there was some fun there that made me think like, wow, this feels like a Miyazaki inspired kind of thing, the
Yes.
three-legged chair.
Yes.
At least that's
Yes.
what I felt. And I'm no expert by any means, but if you agree with me on that, I feel better about it.
I do. There are quite a few homages and slight love letters to Studio Ghibli and Miyazaki. At one point when the social media people are following the cat, one of them
Yes.
says, I feel like I'm in Whisper of the Heart."
I did
So
hear that.
so can I just jump it? Did I
Yes,
hear this
please.
whole thing right? a guy who closes doors becomes a three-legged chair that runs around and chases cats?
Yes.
Okay, noted.
And Chris, it's not like a stool that's meant to have three legs. Like it's a
No,
chair. That's
like it's an actual chair. It's got a back. It's got a square
yes, and it's got a
base.
missing leg. And
And
it's a
two
child's chair.
I like spots that Mother made.
Well,
Okay.
let's talk about this
Okay.
cat. This cat's name is Daijin. Is that correct, Matt? Am I getting that
Yep.
right? Daijin.
Yep.
Does that mean something? I feel like I've run across that word.
You're thinking of Gaijin, which is Westerner.
Oh, I bet that is what I'm thinking of. So what does Daijin mean?
Maybe Daimajin?
Does Daijin mean something though? But I mean,
Yeah,
like maybe it could be some
I'm
type of spirit or
uh,
something.
yeah, I mean, I'm drawing a blank. I think
It's
it's
okay. I didn't mean to
God.
put you on the spot. It felt sometimes because later on we'll get a side Daijin. So it felt like maybe that word might mean something
I
that I
believe
didn't.
God is Kami or Kama.
Yeah, true.
Is that like a
I'm
Kami Kamaha thing?
Yeah. It's probably
What I
got
was
something to do with it. Yeah, it's probably got something to do
Yeah.
with it.
okay,
Although I think that's
I'm
Hawaiian.
I'm seeing here. I'm seeing here that it means minister.
Oh, okay.
So that makes sense. Daijin would
Interesting.
have been the person ministering the
Yes.
gate or
And the
whatever.
cat was the keystone. So the cat was literally like this stone that had runes or something on it.
Yeah.
And when pulled from its place in the ground, became a cat that ran away. And it's a cat that could talk. And I watched the Japanese language version with subtitles. Is that what you watched, Matthew, or
Yeah.
did you watch the dub? Okay. So this voice on Daijin sounds real familiar to me. Does it sound familiar to you?
I think it did, but I forgot to think much about it.
Because I was wondering if it was Anya at times, like the Japanese voice actor for Anya, because of the
Oh.
familiarity. So I didn't know if maybe it was Anya Forger's voice actor the way it sounded. In fact, I was pretty convinced it might be. And it would have been like a really easy thing to look up that somebody who makes YouTube videos probably should have done. But anyway, I like the cat. There's another cat that comes along that's named Sai Daijin that's like this dark cat, and Daijin's the light cat. And you know, I recently got my kitties back around November, and we got a big fat gray kitty and a little tiny white kitty. And seeing Sai Daijin and Daijin on the movie, me and my daughter laughed, and it looked like Smokey and Q-Tip, our two cats running around on screen together. So neither one of ours can talk yet, though. That's the drawback.
What's the
Maybe
holdup?
someday.
What's the holdup?
You know, I just have to turn them into 100-year keystones. But I don't know, any of the supporting characters. The ant is kind of interesting. There's this
Yeah,
guy that wants
I
to
liked her.
date the ant
Yeah.
from her job. There is this real kind of confusing thing when me and my daughter were watching it. They almost make it feel like the ant and Sato's roommate, who wants to be a teacher, he's like a senior in college. They almost seem like there's some chemistry there, which makes it weird because Suzume and Sato also have some chemistry, which is also weird. I don't know. I just didn't know if you wanted to say anything about those supporting characters. It seemed to have some interesting dynamics that were, at the very least, complex. You know, I might have been interpreting them wrong, but it certainly was open to interpretation.
Yeah, I definitely felt there is some possible relationship to develop between the aunt and what's his name?
Sato's roommate. I can't remember right now. The one that had the car that he ran in a ditch. And I remember thinking, you know, this car, Chris, it's a convertible, and it looks like an expensive car, but this guy's a broke student.
It's got to be a Mazda Miata.
Well, he got a good deal on it because the roof wouldn't go all the way up. It would only go halfway up, and it starts raining, and he tries to put the roof like halfway up, and then I don't know, stuff happens. The car crashes, it hits a ditch. When it hits the ditch, it fixes the roof, but now the car won't run.
That was a good joke. I like that.
Yeah, going back to the relationship thing there, I was a little confused for a second trying to follow it because I thought you were saying that the chairman was in like a throuple with the Suzume and his college roommate. I was like, it's a chair. They all love the chair, but I was confused for a second. But the further explanation helped me.
There's more than one scene which involves Suzume attempting or succeeding to kiss the chair, Chris.
You know, just in case it's the frog prince thing.
So,
That's
and I had some theories that didn't come out to be true. I had a weird theory as I was watching it, Matthew. I thought that
Yeah.
Suzume was going to turn out to be related to Soda. And like, because she can see these worms and Soda can see these worms, but most people can't. So I thought it
Yeah.
might be like the Ackerman thing. Honestly, I thought like might be like the Ackerman thing with Levi and Mikasa, which big spoiler for Attack on Titan. I hope I don't get hate mail.
Ooh.
But anyway, I thought it might be
you mean
something
their
like that.
family? Oh,
I thought it might be something like that, but that didn't play out. And then I thought
Nope.
maybe, I kept thinking maybe every Keystone has to be a mother and daughter, and like Sai Daijan and Daijan were mother and daughter cats, but that didn't quite play out. But it was still a whole lot of fun having these theories running around in my head. It's a beautiful visual experience, great music. I
Yeah.
think it's worth going to see in the theater. I'm getting that that's the same thing you recommend, Matthew.
Yep, totally. Any well, see any anime that's in the theater if you can.
And Chris, if I know you, I know you're probably not that interested in checking this one out in the theater.
great director, probably an amazing art team. I seen like the trailer for it. It looked really good. There's not enough face punching, explosions, ninja fights. There's just not enough of it. There's too much emotion. There's too much. I don't want zero emotion. I want face punches, like knockout kicks, magic power balls getting shot at people. That's what I need. Like there's not enough of that. So yeah, I probably won't be watching it, but I'm sure it's good. And I know there's an audience for everything. So there you go.
Well,
Yeah, you kind of got to get to the end of it before you get the giant cat versus the giant worm.
Which is a beautiful big fight.
Well, maybe I'll just go and like jump in at if I can find it, jump in the last 10 minutes just to watch the fight.
I'm sure it'll be streaming soon enough, and you just jump straight to the end there.
Yeah, but I loved it that she had gotten lost in this realm of the gods, glimpsed through the door as a child, and how it came back to that. That was beautiful stuff.
Well, I think with that, I'm going to say, go see Suzume, everybody except Chris. And I'm proud of you for watching anime, and we'll talk to you again soon.
I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who supports the channel on Patreon. It really means a lot to me. If you might be interested in Patreon perks like early access to videos, uncut reaction videos, ad-free videos, and the opportunity to vote on which anime will be covered in the future, then click on the link in the video description. Thank you.